Welcome to Inside Integration. My name is Chris, and I am joined, as always, by my co-host Jason.
What's up, everybody?
And today we're just kind of shooting shit. We're just gonna kind of wing it.
Yeah, we call these episodes the BS, and there's definitely some hyperbole there and an acronym. And it is Barlo and Savage talking shop, so it's always fun to have a few moments to maybe air out some news, talk about some feelings about some things. There's been no shortage of updates and new things happening in the CI space and the CE space when it comes to, my God, man, the stock market is going crazy on AI tech. We've got announcements from CE Pro on the top 100 in the markets out there. We've got new updates from Sony. We've got a whole bunch of stuff going on. And, I think this is a great opportunity for us to chop it up and talk about it.
Yeah, why not? It's yeah, there is, like you said, man. There's a lot going on right now. We've talked about Sony ad nauseum, but all those road shows are wrapping up. So now everybody in the country has seen that demo.
Oh my God, man, it's so fun. I think they say that blue light isn't probably the healthiest thing to have just pouring on you and hyper focused fashion. Good thing that LED panels and LCD panels have those actually have the screen portion of
Right.
the TV to block your eyes from some of that. But
Unless they
man,
don't.
yeah, well, that's true. If you came to the Sony line shows, you might have seen the fact that we had a couple of displays that had no front screens on, and all you could see was the backlight. But man, that Bravia 9 really is something special, and
Yeah.
we're starting to see a lot of orders flying in the door, and a lot of those TVs flying out the door.
Yep.
So it's very clear that has resonated with the audience out there that was able to take this in. And I think there's a much higher comfort level for guys that are like, I'm an OLED dude until I see something better, and maybe Bravia 9 is the answer to a lot of those.
Yeah, and I mean that seems to match the sentiment that we've been hearing from dealers. It's kind of, we're seeing it all over the internet too. Like there's a lot of we said it going into this that the mini LED technology and the OLED stuff, there's going to be a bit of a overtaking, right? Like obviously, Sony jumped full bore into this boat, and it seems to have borne out. It seems to be really, really special. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's there's definitely comparisons with Black Level and that kind of thing, but I mean for precise backlighting and that kind of thing, I mean that Bravia Series 9, dude, there's some special sauce in that puppy.
yeah, it's cool. I mean, I think the big takeaway from all of that is technology is evolving, and Sony has never one to shy away from new technology, new opportunities, new things to try to improve the breed and to improve their brand overall. I don't think it's a secret that Sony doesn't have a big factory that makes panels anymore, right? They're
Right.
they're buying they're buying supply from the other vendors in the market. So whether that's VA or IPS or whoever out there, they're they're using the best ingredients that they can get their hands on to cook up the best outcome or best solution possible. One of the things I actually saw here recently, so on top of all this cool new technology that they've already got, but the chip manufacturer that they use, the MediaTek device that really runs the system on chip part of a Sony television. So the Sony guts, if you will, the brain behind the screen. MediaTek has announced that they have new chipsets coming out for 2025 that will feature full bandwidth on all the HDMI inputs
Hmm.
and be able to improve the refresh rate, I think up to 165 hertz.
Jeez.
So, short of the hardcore gaming monitors out there that do 244, I think, or something like that.
Hmm.
This is as close as you're going to be able to get to something like that in a larger format television or larger format screen. So I know one of the knocks that dealers and customers have raised over the years, like how come all the inputs aren't 4K 120, and
Right.
why is that? And it really just comes down to the chip suppliers that Sony's working with, and Sony's not one of the Sony's not on an island using MediaTek. they're just, they're focused on making sure the stuff works, making sure it's as good as it could possibly be. And MediaTek just moves a little bit slower than some of the competition, but like kind of like Sony, when they set a new bar, they set a new bar out there. So
Right.
they'll be as good or better than anything else on the market from a brand from South Korea or some of the new Chinese brands.
Well, and I mean, it'll, hopefully it'll coincide again with, new game systems and everything. Like this is, it seems like every time there's some revision in some, IC level chip, that everything kind of takes a step forward, right? Now, all of a sudden,
Yep.
Balance can handle up to, 8K or whatever it is, right? Like there's always this incremental thing. So now we're probably a little ways off from it, but that's exciting. It's
It
totally
is.
exciting.
So we got to thank Vincent Tio. We'll call him out from HDTV Reviews because that was his news story. That was his scoop. But we're happy to parrot that out because maybe not everybody's following HDTV Test and some of the other super foil hat nerd television things that I like to pay attention to out there on the internet. But that's exciting. That means that pretty much all of the majors will be on equal footing as far as connectivity goes. And then again, it really just comes down to, do you want chocolate in your peanut butter? Do you want peanut butter in your chocolate? Or
Right.
are you trying to do that, an uncrustable peanut butter and jam kind of
Well, and
situation? Really depends on your flavor.
but then it comes down to, other architectures, right? And that's something that Sony does really well, XR processing and that sort of thing. Those are all, Sony developed in-house and that kind of thing. And that's certainly a difference maker between all of these things, right? Like
Sure.
your TVs would not look as good if it wasn't for, Sony processing and being able to take, whatever streaming source there is and make that just look absolutely amazing.
Well, that's where they spend the money. Again, Sony's not going to tool up, I don't think, to build a new LCD or OLED panel factory. Just, the the laws of diminishing returns on that, right? It doesn't make financial sense. It doesn't make technological sense. So unless again, unless you can figure out, some new way to broadcast television into onto a physical device, okay, we don't need to own all of those things. We can buy the best that we can get our hands on, but we can spend our money on development and what we can do to maximize that. It's kind of like developing your own spices, for fried chicken or something like
Right.
that, right? Like
Right.
you got your Colonel Sanders. Just he's a Japanese engineer. He's not some old guy from Kentucky dreaming up cool new ways to put images on a screen. And he's like, okay, I know I'm going to have the best chicken, but
Yep.
these are the things that I need to develop, and there's your secret herbs and spices. If the Colonel doesn't mind me borrowing his little trademark there.
Hey man, KFC is huge in Japan. I don't know. I'm not sure if you're
Oh,
aware,
that's
but
true.
that's the
That is true.
there's your connection in the story, whether you intended to or not.
See,
That's your, Christmas
probably
Day KFC.
yeah. Probably somewhere in my post illness brain from last week. That may have actually been a connection that was made. Like, I realized that, now that you've said it, of course, KFC is a huge entity in other parts of the world outside the United States. But I mean, I can't think of the last time I actually had KFC. So,
Right. Yeah.
we'll kind of leave it. We'll
Pretty
kind of leave it
sure.
there. I'm pretty sure the food that they get over there or in other parts of the world that has KFC on the logo probably surpasses what we have here in North America.
And
Just
now
a guess.
now we're trashing KFC. Jeez, I don't know
Listen,
how we
they
got
are
down
not
this
in the
road.
technology game. You know what? I can name drop them all I want. They are not going to hurt my TV sales. They're not going to hurt my AV sales, my lighting sales. You know what? Come at me, KFC.
You're gonna find some KFC zealot who's some dealer somewhere, and they're just gonna just go all over, just angry typing all over the
Oh
internet.
man, all caps.
This
And
guy.
they're gonna empty buckets of KFC with one bite out of each piece left on my doorstep with like a note on it, like knock it off, buddy.
Just drumsticks. You're gonna wake up tomorrow morning, and there's gonna be like a chicken head in your bed, Godfather
Ooh.
style, right?
If it's deep fried, I might have a little taste. It's got to be extra
Ooh.
crispy though. It's the
Jamaican
only way
style, right? There you go.
that's the way to go. So, so on top of our update with Sony on MediaTek, we also got a cool update from our friend Mr. Russell Warnhoff, who's been on the pod with us about how to optimize a Sony TV in the Google, shall we say, in the Google setup or in the Google Home sort of world, which was nice. So to kind of draw that out a little bit, there's a way that if you set up a Sony TV to use your Google profile, to use the app only mode, which is kind of what a lot of integrators have been doing with the TV straight out of the box. The downside to TV straight out of the box mode is that there's no access to the Play Store. So if you wanted to put additional apps or additional software on the TV that's available from the Google Play Store, unless you sign into a Google account and put the TV into full Google Home mode, you're kind of one or the other. So Sony's come up with a cool way where you can get rid of some of the advertising that comes from Google and really streamline the UI user experience, and get the full advantage of being able to download the Play Store, being able to get the content and the apps and the stuff that you want on there. And nice cool little benefit is it frees up some memory in the TV, makes it run much faster. So on my personal set here behind me, if you're watching on YouTube, you'll be able to actually see, well, I won't be able to see it in my clip, but I'm actually using it on the display behind me. And if I hit the old home button here and see if it pops up behind me, the UI is much more streamlined, much simpler, much snappier. And it's just the apps that appear on the TV. So this is the part where, again, I write myself a check for all the things that I'm supposed to do in my spare time. But we're going to shoot a quick little video and show you guys how to do that. But very, very simple, very straightforward. But it's a really nice way to give you your clients, the full user experience and the benefits of the Google Play Store without all the targeted marketing, with all the messaging from the apps and content. Like, I don't know how many times I've seen something pop up on my home screen and I'm like, I absolutely want to watch that, and click on it. It's on an app that I don't own, don't really have any intention of owning or signing up for. And it's like, okay, well, this would be cool if I really wanted that, but I don't want to be served up things that I have no intention of downloading or clicking on.
Right.
So the app only mode is that nice little hybrid between, hey, I'd like this thing to be apps only, but I would like access to the Play Store. Sony and Google have figured that out.
Yeah, and that, I mean, it makes a lot of sense, right? It's just like a phone, right? When you have a ton of things going on in your phone in the background or whatever, yeah, you're going to notice some performance, especially as we march forward in time, right? A couple years from now or whatever. Whoever thought that we'd be worried about the amount of memory in your TV 5 years ago, but like, here we are, right? This is our world. But to kind of expand on your point too, one of the nice things about Sony is that as part of the API, there is direct access to any one of these apps, right? So if you're using this in conjunction with a control system like Josh AI or Crestron Home or any of the other ones, you can program it to go directly to, these apps, right? So if you have a user who just likes Netflix, man, button on their home control remote, right to Netflix. Keypad on the wall, walk in, there's a Netflix and chill button. Hit that button, Netflix comes on, turns the lights down. You're now making magic for your client. And Sony's API allows you to do that, which is just baller, right? Like, that is a totally cool thing.
Yeah, Careless Whisper comes on at a low volume in the background. Is that how that works? Or, well, maybe that's not the right song. Maybe it's not Careless Whisper. I'm thinking more maybe like some Sade, like Smooth Operator.
I mean, as long as it's got, whatever that hybrid saxophone Kenny G was real fond of, right?
Yeah.
As long as it's got those tones that are kind of playing. See, my thought is that, you come in and, it's not your room, right? And, you just walk into a stranger's house and you hit the button on the thing, and yeah, the lights dim down and Careless Whisper starts playing, and like, the crunchy roll anime app pops up on your screen, and all you need to know about that individual, and you can just turn around and leave him with his waifu and call it a day, right?
Yeah. Leave you with some anime, some very, I don't even know what. I mean, there's eggs. There's like the creatures of anime are it's a totally foreign world to me. I was excited about, they called it in my day, they called it a Japanimation, I think is what they called that in the 80s back in the day. Like
That
they
was
didn't have any reference for like anime, or they'd just be like, yeah, it's Japanese animation, so we'll call it Japanimation, and there
sure.
you go. I was all in. I was watching robots, Robotech or Macross or whatever. That's how big of a nerd I am.
Yep.
But I loved all that stuff. My kids are both into anime, and the egg monster and the blob and the I don't know what gloomy bear. Like there's a bunch of weird things that I'm sure again resonate with them. I've aged
Sure.
out of
Sure.
all of those things.
Yeah, I'm kind of experiencing a little bit of a renaissance here. See, so my first experience with all that stuff was something called Toonami, which was I think on Cartoon Network, and it was like there was Transformers and I think Dragon Ball Z, and there were a couple other ones. So now
Oh.
it's all kind of come around again, right? And my 8-year-old has discovered Dragon Ball Z, which
Oh,
there's
so he's a Super Saiyan. He's
he
like just charging up.
I mean, well, that's how he looks usually. Like when he doesn't get his way, like he charges up
Uh,
and he's over 9,000 immediately. Especially with his 4-year-old brother. Like the two of them, just
oh yeah, of course.
pretty sure I could probably make a video with explosions and all kinds of good stuff. But yeah, so it's exciting. He's getting into it, and I mean, man, the episodes he's watching, it's like 30 years ago. Like there's this stuff is just evergreen. It just keeps coming around again. Like it's blows my mind.
Yeah, I mean, I'm trying to think about like Dragon Ball Z because I do remember again. I was aged out. My oldest son, he's almost 30 now. Watched that, so you're right. It's definitely right there in that wheelhouse of like
Yep.
25 to
Yep.
30 years old. And okay, all the gray hair on my face just got an extra round of gray hairs because I just got a very deep pang of I felt the Grim Reaper's cold breath blow across my neck because yeah, I'm an old guy now, so
Well,
that's just how that goes.
see, this is relevant talk because it was just Father's Day, right? And here's
It was.
here's where we are, and that's one of my greatest joys of being a dad is seeing my kid discover the same stuff that I discovered 30 years ago. Like,
Oh,
mind
it's
blowing,
all
right?
brand new. Never seen this
I
before. Yeah,
mean,
well,
yeah, Pokemon never went away, but yeah, my kid got into that. It's like, wow, totally remember doing that when I was your age. Oh, jeez.
I'm pretty sure I threw away millions of dollars worth of Pokemon
I
cards
mean,
when
we were all going to retire on our Pokemon cards. That was our retirement
oh,
plan, right? Like,
sorry. Mine was Beanie Babies, bro, and that
oh, there you
didn't
go.
that didn't really pan out. So yeah, my son played with his Pokemon cards like hard, like they ruin
Sure,
those things, right?
sure,
And
sure.
of course now he's like, oh, I'm pretty sure we had first generation
First
Squirtle,
editions.
like whatever, and like I don't know, but we don't need to criticize the naming protocol for some of these Pokemon, but some of
No,
those I don't think have aged
no.
very well. We'll just kind of leave
No,
that
yeah, there
where
was
it.
there was definitely some very very on the line. Maybe there's something lost in translation there, right? For sure.
No, of course there is. Got to catch them all, whatever they are,
Right.
whatever they are.
Right. And the way that this relates to the larger conversation is that, Pokemon episodes are available on Amazon Prime, which is an app on your Sony TV. So we
See,
just connect all those dots. Here we go. Right.
TikTok around the clock. Here we are, back at the dock, ready to launch again into into some other news. There's so many things going on in the industry right now. Has anybody heard about this new deal with SnapAV and Resideo slash ADI?
No, what's that?
I exactly. It
That
seems that it kind of came out of nowhere, and the deal's already done. So it'll be interesting to see what impact that has on the channel overall, but also, what that's going to mean for access for integrators to products across the board, right? Like ADI is a monster.
Yep.
Resideo, no little tiny company, no startup. They're global, right?
Yep.
This is a company that was a spinoff from Honeywell little company you might have heard of
Right.
over the
Yeah, a
years.
little company that makes nuclear reactors and thermostats. Right.
Yeah, that's really the only two things in their catalog. But it's
The only things that matter to
uh,
us. I mean, really. Yeah.
yeah, there you go. Of course, that's a lot of sarcasm and being very facetious in there. I mean, massive, massive company. So you're so big, you're able to spin off part of your company that just deals with everything else that doesn't have a Honeywell logo on it.
Yep.
And then they've targeted the CI space and the integrator space to try to move up from the alarm business. Quite frankly, I think that's kind of where most
Right.
integrators that I talk to kind of position ADI as, they're that's the alarm place.
Yeah, it's an
That's
alarm
where the
distributor.
alarm
Right.
guys go, right?
Yep.
The fact that from what I understand, anyways, that the ADI branches are going to look a whole lot more like the SnapAV world as opposed to the opposite, means that there's going to be a whole lot more product out there available to a whole lot more integrators. And I could see that being a pretty attractive opportunity for a company like Resideo to acquire the IP, the people. My God, the team that SnapAV has, quite frankly, some of the best people I know in the industry
Sure.
work for that organization, and it's exciting for them, I'm sure, to see wow, we're really going to take this thing to to the next level or take it to Mars kind of thing, right?
Well, I mean, and it makes it really does kind of when you really look at the strengths and weaknesses of each company, and when you put them next to each other, Residio is obviously very strong in kind of the home space, except for audio video, right? Like they don't really have, they have a bunch of, they have air purification, they have thermostats, they have alarm stuff, and they sort of stay away from the AV side of things, right? Like there's no video distribution, there's no audio distribution, they don't make speakers, they don't do any of those traditional things. And then you put Snap up against them and it's like the missing piece just kind of chunks right into place, right? Snap's got episode speakers, Snap has, amplification, video distribution,
This little thing called Control
this
4.
little tiny Control 4 thing that can sort of serve to put everything together, right? Like this is where things are going. And it makes sense that Residio would look at them and say, yes, this is a component that we'd like to purchase, and it really kind of slots in. But then when you kind of start thinking about what the target markets are for these things, right? Yeah. So Residio, yeah, they definitely target alarm guys, but they do a lot of marketing towards home builders, production builders, and these guys. And I mean, I can't tell you how many times I've run into dealers down here who are trying to get in on a project, and the builder tells them, yeah, it's got to be, it's Honeywell thermostats because they approached me and we made a deal, and now, they're doing the entire neighborhood with Residio, and hey, you're along for the AV ride, right? So it's hard to believe that sort of thing wouldn't carry over into the AV side. So you're starting to look at very, very large entities that are going to have these relationships with production builders who are doing homes in volume where, would you even, yeah, it's custom integration, but would you, you're starting to blur that line, right? Like this stuff is getting a lot less custom.
Yeah, I can see that. I can see the point there. I mean, I think, looking at it from probably their perspective, and full, full transparency here. I have no dogs in this fight. I know nobody on the Residio side. I don't have any shares of Snap or of Residio, right? Like this is all just pure observation from a couple of chuckleheads that are looking at it from the industry level, but from the outside looking in. And yeah, it's hard to see a downside, I think, for the Residio crowd. Maybe they need to, tighten up a little bit with some of the lines or some of the things that they've got in their house. But when you look at the upside or potential upside for them, access to way more of the high dollar kind of customers that are rolling in the door to buy displays, to buy projectors, to buy audio products. And of course, that just raises their game with all of the vendors out there. They become the number one target for promotions and for, hey, if you're not maybe big enough, or maybe you are big enough,
Yep.
maybe you are a big integration firm and you're like, you know what, I don't want to worry about direct relationships with all these different vendors. I'd really just like to go to one place, buy my stuff. And if I buy enough stuff there every year, guess what? I can get up to 7 to 9% back or whatever their VIR program is.
Sure.
That is, it's a pretty,
It's a compelling
you
argument
know,
for sure,
it's a pretty
especially as a
compelling
business
argument.
owner, right? Like everybody is stretched in these days. Like, talk to any integrator and it's like, yeah, I need a back office guy. I need 3 more guys out in the field. I need this, I need that. And, something that can streamline your thing where, you don't have to submit a PO to all these different vendors
Yep.
and do those sort of things, or, have the good people at Oliver Marketing do that for you.
Right.
But, but that's a compelling argument too, right? The streamlining of it. If you're just in their program and, you're earning VIR points or whatever it is on everything that they produce, that's a compelling thing. I think it's going to be
Yeah.
really tough to fight against that. And I mean, there's really no, SnapAV was they were sort of by themselves, right? Like there's regional distributors and whatever, but nobody really had like that national presence that Snap One
Oh,
did. And, they were kind of alone at the top back then. Now with Resideo and ADI, I mean, it's almost, not to cast aspersions or anything, but like you're almost talking about antitrust territory. Like that's how big this
certainly a
market share is.
big outfit. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I don't think you could call them a monopoly
No,
per se, right? But um, it's certainly, I'm sure it's something that the FCC, was looking at, going, like what are you guys doing here? Or yeah, FTC. Sorry, there we go.
yeah,
Federal
there you
Trade
go.
Commission. I got to get the right acronym
Well,
in here before I
as
get sued.
as long as it's never really going to be a monopoly as long as companies like, as long as Amazon exists, right? Because you can
Yeah, that's
always,
true.
and I do know plenty, I know plenty of dealers who, man, they order just about everything off Amazon, right? Like there's a market that certainly does that. But
Sure.
this is definitely, I think it's more the relationship thing is more of the concern, because if you've got a huge national company that has those national company dollars behind it that are, targeting builders in your area, you know, that's something to maybe be concerned about, right? Like maybe we all kind of need to
Right.
pitch a little bit more of like, hey, this is, we do things in a bespoke way. We can work with your project team and we can do all these things. And that's maybe the approach for some integrators to take is, hey, we're specialized, right? Like, do you want to buy your plans for your home off the internet, or do you want to work with a local architect who's going to, make this thing your own? Like, that's sort of the conversation we're all going to start getting familiar with here.
Yeah, well, and I think it also probably in a lot of integrators' minds probably solidifies the need to want to be direct, right? Like if you're at a certain level, you've built an infrastructure and you're like, hey, I want to keep all of that distribution stuff at arm's length because I get a deeper program. I'm on top of my business. I'm maximizing priority. And not I don't think I'm pulling the covers off here
Yeah.
for anybody specifically, but Little Bird told me over the couple of decades or so that I've been doing this is like distributors aren't getting the first round of deliveries, right? It's those direct guys get priority. It's
Right.
those first stop relationships. So I want to make sure that we're clear that we're not casting aspersions on any
Absolutely
direct
not.
relationships out there. There's a reason to have different shoes for different feet, So I think it's probably solidifying in a lot of guys' minds like, oh yeah, I definitely want to be direct with my key brands, my key vendors, and then keep the distribution level stuff on an as needed basis. And I'm sure that some of the other organizations out there, I'll just go ahead here and name drop them. Guys that are in the powerhouse group, right? They all of a sudden their stock probably shot up a little bit.
Sure.
You've got your guys like 21st Century, you've got Pioneer Music, you've got Mountain West, of course, out here in the western part of the U.S. Big opportunity for those guys with maybe some of the folks scratching their head at like, I don't want to buy from quote unquote AEI or
Right.
Residio or whatever. Again, I want to buy from guys that I know or whatever that perception is. I think if you're in the powerhouse or you're buying from those guys in the powerhouse, you're probably looking at this going, huh, okay, maybe I should spend more time going over to talk to my partners over here and see what my other options look like.
Yeah, and I think, I mean, I think that's very valid, right? Like every every move in the industry creates opportunities no matter what. It's just it's finding them. And that's kind of what you were speaking to, is there's definitely opportunities here with just dealers who they don't want to buy from somebody huge and faceless, right? Like they want that relationship. And I think it's the same thing with clients, and I think it's
There it is.
the same with builder partners and that kind of thing. And that's, these are all opportunities that we can capitalize on, if we're looking in the right places. I think for me, again, my tenure as an integrator is not that far removed. I think for me, the concern is kind of the same concern that I had when SnapAV bought Control 4. So where do we go? More competition is always better in every market, right? So the fact that we really do have, 4 or 5 stand-up home automation platforms, right? This isn't like back in the day when it was, Crestron and AMX, or even Crestron AMX and
Yeah.
Elan, right? Like now,
URC, baby.
yeah, like
Yeah.
now we've got, now just to name a few, and I apologize if I miss any, right? We have Control 4, we have Savant, we have Crestron, we have Nice, which used to be Elan, we have Universal Remote Control, we have Josh AI. There are, plus AMX somehow still exists in the
Yeah.
commercial world.
Not
But
necessarily in that order, but yeah.
absolutely not in that order for sure. Um, but yeah, it's, it's always good to have, competition within a space is good, because that's what kind of breeds innovation, right? So, again, I'll use Josh AI as an example, and not just because we represent them in the Pacific Northwest and we love them. But Josh AI, there was an opportunity there to kind of get in with, with a different sort of system. And that's, they saw something where everybody else was lacking, and they realized that people just didn't want to put Amazon Echoes all over the home, or they wanted something a little bit better than that. And that's sort of where they made their niche. Now they're fleshed out into a full blown system that works great. It's got a great UI and everything else. And that was their entree into things, right? Savant, same story, right? The story goes, the president was getting a control system from a rival put into his house, and he said, yeah, there's got to be a better way to do this. And that stood up, from there, despite where it's gone. But there's always opportunities. Just to get way back to where I started, I think my concern is that, and it's the same one as when Snap bought Control 4. When do things start becoming exclusive, right? So when does it become
Right.
that you can't use an IP video distribution system from, Snap or Binary with a Crestron system, right? When does it become, when do things get a little bit weird, right? So already your audio distribution systems are pretty much exclusive to your control system manufacturer, with a couple of exceptions, where, if you wanted to use a triad audio distribution system, you cannot do that with Savant, and you cannot do that with Nice, and you cannot do that with URC. Same thing with URC. URC has their own their own audio distribution platform. You know, this is my concern, is that everybody's going to be siloed in, so that when you choose a Control 4 system or a Snap system or a Resideo system, or whatever it may be, you are from soup to nuts, from control processor through audio switching, through video switching to everything else. You're in their ecosystem. And that might be appealing to a lot of guys, because, people say, hey, these things are tested to work together. But, if you're if you're building a PC, right? Like you're not, you're going to
You want to
source the
put the
best
best
components.
RAM. Yeah,
Exactly.
you want to put the best goodies in there. That's a really long advertisement for Josh AI, Chris. Good job. you know,
That's, hey,
the
that's
the
where I
ability
started.
to, yeah, the ability to, I mean, it is still kind of a sandbox play for the most part, but it doesn't all have the same name brand on it, right? Like
Right.
I think that really is the power of a solution like Josh for control, where Tyler has said repeatedly, like, let's take the money out of the rack, and make it simple for the integrator. But also, it doesn't mean that the job got any cheaper. It just means that you're able to give your client the option to spend more money on the things that are tangible to them.
Right.
Whether it's furniture, whether it's more high performance audio, maybe it's nicer amplifiers from Sonance, whatever that happens to be.
Yep.
I think there's the carrot, and it's nice to know that in a world of consolidation, there are some pretty bright shining examples that fly in the face of sort of that, the alignment or the convergence of all of those brands coming together. And I think you can look at history too, right? Like you can look at Nortec, and you can look at some of what happened there with core brands and some of these vendors over time, where they bought a bunch of legacy product and it bought a bunch of legacy solutions that frankly hadn't maybe been innovated or hadn't had a lot of changes over the last few years. Now there's a whole new reason to have your eyes open about where's the stuff coming from, who am I working with, does this make sense for my business, does this make sense for my customers?
Yep.
And I guess again, long story short is this is all brand new. This deal just shook out here the last week, I believe, as we're recording this. So
Yep.
the 15th or so of June of 2024. So we haven't had a lot of time yet to see how it's all going to shake out. But we know that the branches will probably be consolidating, merging together. ADI, Resideo, SnapAV, whatever that's going to look like at the end of the day, is going to have a much bigger national footprint.
Sure.
And it's going to be something that I think the industry as a whole has probably one eye sort of cocked to the left, kind of like that monkey meme from internet fame, where it's sort of like side eyeing, always kind of watching what's going on over there, because I think it's going to have a bigger impact on more people's business. Just generally speaking, whether it's going to improve things or maybe it's going to turn some people off. Again, maybe they move to a Josh, maybe they move to a Nice.
Sure.
Maybe those other tent poles out there become more attractive because, well, everybody's got control brand for, or whatever that looks like, right? Like it's just it's an unknown world, and it's exciting that we're able to talk about some things here that aren't necessarily people or product related per se on this episode. It's nice to just kind of talk about what's going on in the game and kind of kick it back and forth a little bit. You and I both got, what if you put it together, close to 50 years of experience,
1,000 years
in the channel. Okay, that hurt. That's fair.
When you put it together,
yeah.
1,000 years.
Yeah, it's a lot, but as things do in this industry, they're always changing, they're always different, and unfortunately, the Philips Pronto is dead. So we've got to look.
R.I.P. baby. R.I.P. That was.
Well,
when I look back at my life, it's easy to say that the Philips Pronto is where everything went wrong. I can easily say, as soon as I learned how to plug in that headphone jack and program that thing to play Tetris, that was where it all went wrong, right? And I said, whoa, what else can I do?
That's definitely where my era started. I mean, the Marantz AVRs used to come with a Pronto in the box, and like that was like, okay, and oh, by the way, here's this remote that's pre-programmed to run the Marantz, but if you hook up this software, you can program it. And I don't know how many clients I had go, can you program this for me?
Yep.
And the answer is yes, but the price may hurt your feelings a little bit.
Right. Well, and
this was an hour.
This was a lot of people's foray into, charging for your programming time, right? So like, hey, it's a universal remote. Well, yeah, but there's a guy, me, who is going to sit on a bucket in this room and program this thing, and it's going to take a few hours, and you're going to have to pay for it. And yeah, that Marantz, I believe it was called Wizit. Was that the software, right? Like there was the Marantz version of the software was called Wizit, and it was so similar to Pronto. It was obviously, licensed or whatever.
Sure.
And yeah, I remember those days fondly. And yeah, it used to come in an AVR box. And now you're trying to figure out, let me see what I can make my buttons look like on this thing, and how, how can I, where can I put my anchors and that sort of thing. And, it's, we're probably talking to maybe 3 people in this audience who are old enough to know what this is, but
well, hopefully, do a quick search on Daniel Tonks and Remote Central.
Oh, baby.
And, you can download some TV, whatever the icons for your favorite channels.
Yep. That's right. The satellite channels.
I don't know how many hours of my life that I have squandered on writing macros for favorite channels for clients, but I think there was a certain point where it was like, look, I will give you like 4 pages max of Pronto
Right.
favorite channels, and I've already programmed these once, and I'll be able to modify a couple of them to suit your needs, but I may not be able to come up with a graphic for you
So
until Daniel Tomsk makes a bitmap that I can upload and put on your Pronto.
so do you remember, so going back to that specific example, are there any DirecTV channels that you remember exactly what the channel number was for the channel to put it in there because it was part of that macro? Because there's definitely a few that I remember.
Well, for me, it was in Central Florida. That was where I was in those days. For sure, it was like 1020, 1060, 1090 for 2, 6, and 9 for your
Yep, there you go.
local
Sure.
ABC, NBC, and CBS affiliates.
When they launched the additional satellites to be able to provide local channels in certain markets, yeah, baby.
Right. And then your HD net, I think, was like a 1099 or something like that. Like I can't remember I mean,
Yep.
I watched a lot of HD net back in the day, so I could watch bears pooping in the river in the morning, and
One of two HD channels at the outset, right? ESPN and HDNet and HBO. There was an HBO HD back in the day too,
oh,
right?
and Discovery HD too, right?
That's
So
right.
sorry, there's where the bears would crap in the river and
Yep.
the eagles would fly, and
Space
then you
shuttle
had
launches in full 1080
yeah,
with surround sound and all that good
and you
stuff.
had
Yep.
Zane Lamprey, the comedian Zane Lamprey, doing 3 sheets. So guys like taking you to bars around the world. Like
Yep.
I've got my first HD TV. It's rear projection. It's a Sony. I'm thinking good stuff.
Yep.
And the only way to watch anything on it was to make sure you had like the baller cable package and that you could get
Yep.
HD net. And of course, I get my friends to come over and watch it, and they're like, I bought an HD TV and it doesn't look like that at my house. It's like, well, because you don't have an HD TV, don't have an HD TV feed, my friend.
Right.
Because without that, you're
Which
sort of
only available via DirecTV at the outset, right? You remember you couldn't get that. Cable boxes were not HD at that point. Like the first, do you remember the first HD?
Sure. TiVo. Yeah, the TiVo HD pack with the direct. Yeah, this is a remember when. So people have just totally turned this off. Tony
Right.
Soprano's like, remember when is the lowest form of conversation, but I don't care, Tony.
That's what we do. AV guys get together and talk about the old shit. Right.
Absolutely. It's a bunch of gear that you don't care about. Yeah, we had, I think our neighborhood in Orlando was one of the first that had like Bright House and Roadrunner. So as soon as broadband internet came out, HDTV was part of that package. So I remember that kind of coming through and like, okay, here I go spending $200 and something a month on
3 HD channels. Right.
Yeah.
Space shuttle launches, bears shitting, and 3 sheets. Yeah. Those were the 3 options.
It was fantastic, and actually I went to a Zane Lamprey comedy show in Spokane of all places last year, and got a chance to meet him and check him out. And I was like, hey man, thanks for making HDTV a thing for my industry. And he sort of looked at me and he's like, every few shows, every once in a while, I'll get a guy that's comes at me roughly your age and will say something similar. And I'm like, how does that make you feel? And he's like, I have no idea what you're talking about. Just so you know, it's like we shot this show on spec. We sold it and Mark Cuban's company bought it. And next thing I know, everywhere we go, I'm getting Drink Spot for me and people are, wanting us to fly here and fly there. He's like, it was a success in spite of itself, which is, a fun little story to get from the guy that was there the whole time. But
I mean, that's a crazy thought too, that's right. HDNet was bankrolled by Mark Cuban, like fresh off of his broadcast.com money, right? Like before podcast, streaming, YouTube, anything was a thing. It was Mark Cuban and Shoutcast or whatever it was called. And he took that, he took that little chunk of change and stood up HDNet, which ran for a couple of years without commercials just to kind of prove out the technology. I mean, blows my mind, man.
Who's ever going to want to listen to baseball games on the internet?
Right?
Come on. What are you talking about?
That's all we do now. There's no,
it's
I couldn't find a baseball game on a radio if I tried. It's great.
I just took my kids to an M's game here a week or so ago, and we left a little bit early because you want you want to get out of there and walk out before the walk-off grand slam at the end of the game in the ninth inning.
That is true. Yes, that Cal rally.
You want to get out of
right?
there and beat the Cars, right? So yeah, we did that. I was trying to find the baseball game in the car on AM radio, not a thing.
Nope.
And
MLB app. It's the only place to find
yeah, little tear out of the corner of my eye. And I was just like, man, like what happened? I'm an old man now. It's true. I don't even know how technology works, and I work with it every day.
What are all these things?
Exactly.
No, I don't know what this is.
So many buttons. That's all I know. I don't know what it does, but there's a lot of buttons.
Yeah, and you know what? And it's funny because now that we're at the end here, we've come full circle back around to apps, which is where we started, right?
See?
The MLB app on your Sony TV is a thing of beauty. It's amazing. It shows stats on a screen, out of market games. It's wonderful. And it's available through your Sony TV in app only mode.
Right.
We're just going to cut it right there. Whoop, gone.
Okay. Well, that's it. Thanks for joining us. Take care, everybody. Love you. Mean it. Take care.
Yeah. Like and subscribe. That's all I have to add to this. Thanks so much.